The bomb fell on Phoenix, Arizona, at exactly 2:13 p.m. on a bright September afternoon in 1998. The sky, once a clear blue, became a churning mass of fire and soot, swallowing the city whole. The shockwave rolled outward, flattening buildings and igniting wildfires that stretched for miles. Those who were lucky enough to survive the initial blast found themselves thrust into a world teetering on the brink of madness. Elliot Grayson had been on the outskirts of Mesa when the news broke. He saw the mushroom cloud before the radio static swallowed the broadcast. He knew, without needing to hear the words, that Phoenix was gone. His first thought was to find his wife and son, but as he turned his car back toward the city, the traffic jam of panicked people fleeing in the opposite direction told him what he already feared: there was no going back. The first day after the attack, the survivors clung to order. Strangers helped each other, small groups formed in search of food and shelter. But by the second day, the stores had been stripped bare. The police, overwhelmed and leaderless, began abandoning their posts. By the third day, the real collapse began. A man shot a woman in front of a gas station over a half-full gallon of water. When Elliot reached her, she was still alive, clutching at his arm, her lips forming words that had lost all meaning. He stayed with her until her breathing stopped. By the fourth day, the fires had spread beyond Phoenix, turning the sky into an unending twilight. Elliot kept moving, carrying nothing but a backpack filled with whatever supplies he could scavenge. He avoided the cities, where the remnants of the population were already forming into desperate gangs. He kept to the edges of roads, hiding in abandoned houses when he could. The sound of gunfire became a familiar background noise, the punctuation to a world unraveling. On the sixth day, he found a small camp of survivors outside of Tempe. They welcomed him with caution, their faces worn and hollow. There were 8 of them, 2 families, a young couple, and an old man who carried a revolver with a single bullet left. They shared what little they had, clinging to the illusion that things would return to normal. But normal was dead, buried under the ruins of Phoenix. On the 7th night, they heard the trucks. The sound carried through the still night air, engines rumbling, voices barking orders. Elliot and the others extinguished their fire and hid, peering out from behind the rusting shell of an old RV. What they saw sent ice through their veins. A convoy of vehicles, filled with armed men, rolled down the highway. They weren't soldiers. Their clothes were mismatched, their weapons scavenged. The symbols painted on their trucks were crude, hastily drawn. And they weren't looking for allies. The camp scattered before the convoy could stop. Elliot ran into the darkness, alone again, leaving behind the screams that followed. He didn't look back. By the 10th day, he had given up hope of ever finding his family. He had given up hope of anything. Civility had collapsed, and in its place was raw survival. He no longer saw people, only threats, only obstacles. He told himself he was different, that he still had a shred of decency left. But when he killed a man for a can of peaches on the 12th day, he knew he had become just like everyone else. By the 15th day, the cities were dead. The strong had taken what they wanted, and the weak had been left to rot. The fires still burned, casting long shadows against the ruins of civilization. Elliot sat atop a ridge, looking down at what remained of Phoenix. The smoke twisted into the sky, a silent testament to the death of reason. And in that moment, he realized that the bomb hadn't destroyed the world. People had.